If you've ever been to a furry convention or scrolled through furry TikTok, you've probably seen something pretty distinctive: the sheer energy level. You'll see furries absolutely losing it over cute art with "that's so cute" or "OMG, look at them" typed in all caps with about 17 exclamation marks. Or hear groups at conventions practically vibrating with excitement over literally anything. It's this unique, enthusiastic energy that seems to radiate from a lot of furries, and honestly, it's one of those things that makes the fandom instantly recognizable. I wanted to look into why this high energy behavior exists, how it shows up in the way furries communicate, and what's actually going on psychologically that makes some furries so uniquely enthusiastic. Though of course, this definitely isn't everyone in the fandom. This video idea came from SummitTheDragon on my Discord server, so shout out to them for the suggestion. Anyway, before we get into the specifics, let me start by breaking down what we actually mean when we talk about high energy furries. When we talk about high-energy furries, we're usually referencing a few specific behaviors that tend to stand out. There's the enthusiastic reactions to basically everything. For example, someone posts their fursona and suddenly there's 15 comments going, "Ah, they're perfect," or "Adorable bean must protect." It's this immediate, unfiltered excitement that doesn't hold back. Then there's the physical affection and closeness that Wikifur describes as a characteristic of the furry subculture. A lot of furries hug each other constantly. There's a lot of playful physical interaction, and conventions are basically just massive hug boxes where a lot of people, not everyone, are comfortable being tactile and affectionate with each other. This ties into that high energy vibe because it's all about open, enthusiastic expression rather than reserved behavior. You also see it in communication styles. Lots of exclamation marks, emoticons like uwu and owo, which originated in furry spaces back in the early 2000s. Extended vowels like hi or bye, and just generally a very animated, expressive way of typing that mirrors how energetic furries tend to be in person. It's like the text version of bouncing up and down while talking. So why does this happen? One of the biggest factors researchers have found is how fursonas function as an idealized version of ourselves. According to Fur Science, most furries create fursonas that are outgoing, sociable, extroverted, and way more confident than they actually are in real life. When furries identify strongly with these idealized versions, they experience greater self-esteem and life satisfaction. What's particularly interesting is that many furries report being shy, reserved, and socially anxious in their day-to-day lives. One fursuiter named Corbin even shared that he was really shy and afraid to talk to people before discovering the furry fandom, but it changed his life and gave him confidence to dance and perform in front of others. The fandom basically becomes this space where people can practice being the more confident, energetic version of themselves. Some research in 2020 from Axis found that when furries put on a fursuit, they feel free to be whatever they want to be, confident and outgoing without fear of judgment. One mother described how their anxious 9-year-old daughter completely comes out of her shell when she puts on her fursuit, able to play freely with other kids. It's like wearing an empowering disguise that unlocks a more energetic social side of their personality, and on another note shows that basically anyone can join the furry fandom. Another significant factor is the high percentage of neurodivergent people in the furry fandom. Fur Science research found that furries are at least 2.25 times more likely to have Asperger's syndrome or autism than the general population, and ADHD is also quite common within the community. For neurodivergent furries, the fandom's acceptance creates a space where stimming, hyperfixation, and enthusiastic special interests aren't seen as weird or excessive. They're just normal. If someone wants to info dump dump about their fursona's entire backstory, or get extremely excited about a specific character trait. That's encouraged rather than shut down. This acceptance naturally leads to more open displays of enthusiasm and energy. The fursona itself can also function as a communication aid for neurodivergent individuals. Your fursona helps signal to others how you'd like to be treated. If you're a nervous person who likes reassurance, you might present as a shy or bashful character. This makes social interaction easier, which in turn can make people feel more comfortable expressing that high energy enthusiasm. First science research on fantasy engagement found something really interesting. Furries have particularly active, vivid, and magical mental worlds compared to non-furries. They're more likely to have vivid daydreams, more likely to experience intense mental imagery, and generally engage in higher levels of healthy fantasy behavior, like creative activities and recreational imagination. Of course, this doesn't mean furries can't distinguish fantasy from reality. They're just as good at that as anyone else. But it does mean that when a furry sees cute art or interacts with someone's character, they're probably experiencing it more vividly and intensely than someone who doesn't engage in fantasy as much. And that naturally usually translates to a more energetic or enthusiastic reaction. The research also found that furries are highly sensate people, meaning they strongly experience and appreciate stimulation of the senses. This ties back to the physical affection thing, but it also explains why furries get so excited about visual details, textures in fursuit materials, or the sensory experience of conventions. Everything just hits harder when you're someone who processes sensory information that intensely. When it comes to how furries actually communicate, there's this whole constructed language element that's developed over decades. Fur speech, as some refer to it as, involves substituting key syllables in regular words. For example, fursona instead of persona, pawsome instead of awesome, or some fur instead of someone. It's playful and fun rather than serious, and it adds to that energetic, enthusiastic vibe. Then there's the emoticon usage. Uwu representing a cute or content face, owo representing surprise or excitement, and various other expressions that convey enthusiasm in text form. Wikipedia notes that these emoticons are used to express warm, happy, or affectionate feelings, and they're so associated with furries that they've become almost iconic of the fandom's communication style. Role-playing conventions are also huge in furry communication. And no, I don't mean conventions in terms of the events that you attend. Using asterisks to indicate actions like wags tail or gives you a big hug has been part of furry culture since the early internet days. It's this way of adding physical energy and emotion to text-based communication, making it feel more animated and lively even when you're just typing. Now, it's really important to emphasize that not all furries are high energy or super enthusiastic. There are plenty of introverted, reserved furries who participate in the community without the exclamation marks and constant hugging. Research on personality traits in the furry fandom shows a pretty normal distribution. There are extroverts and introverts just like in any other group. What makes the furry fandom unique isn't that everyone is high energy, but that high energy behavior is normalized and accepted in a way that it might not be elsewhere. If you want to express unbridled enthusiasm about something, the furry fandom provides a space where that's welcomed rather than seen as excessive or childish. And if you don't want to be that way, that's also perfectly fine. The fandom's loose structure and emphasis on self-expression means there's room for all personality types. The high-energy furries just tend to be more visible because, well, they're louder and more outwardly enthusiastic, which of course makes them stand out. But behind every excited suitor bouncing around a convention, there's probably 3 quiet furries happily drawing in the artist alley without making a scene. So after looking into all of this, I think what becomes clear is that the high-energy enthusiastic behavior you see from some furries isn't just random or performative. It comes from a combination of psychological factors that make the furry fandom uniquely positioned to bring out people's more energetic, confident sides. Whether it's the confidence boost from embodying an idealized fursona, the acceptance of neurodivergent communication styles, the vivid fantasy engagement that makes experiences more intense, or just the general culture of enthusiasm being normalized and encouraged, all of these factors create an environment where it's safe and even rewarding to express that kind of energy. Anyway, it's worth remembering that this isn't everyone in the fandom, and that's perfectly okay. The beauty of the furry community is that there's space for the bouncing, excited, all caps typing furries, and the quiet, reserved observer furries to coexist comfortably. I'd love to know where you fall on that spectrum in the comments below, or you can start a conversation on my Discord server at dsc.gg/skikes. And with that, I hope you all have a fantastic day.